Should start with Monica's ring.
Yes, let's do
Monica's ring was my mother was Stella Adams Welch. And her husband, Jim Welch, gave her that ring. And it was to emulate a star sapphire. And it was purchased at Button Jewelers in Wenatchee.
Oh.
And she wore that ring all the time. That was her favorite ring. And Monica was the lucky one to inherit that ring.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, a lot of the things that we incorporated in our cabin were also from the Stella Welch and Jim Welch. And we'll have to back up from there and go to how do we happen to purchase this cabin.
Nice.
Okay, the cabin was not here, and we spent, both my sisters and I, the three of us inherited the family cabin, which was down lake a mile from where we actually ended up with a cabin. And so three people in a family can't, it's hard to own a cabin for three people. And because each family, each person has a different idea of what a cabin should be.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we ended up doing, we lived in California, and we realized that we weren't going to be able to spend as much time here as my other two sisters. And so we realized that we should be one that did not get the cabin.
Mm.
And then my other sister, the cabin was an old cabin, and she wanted something new. And so she said, well, okay, I don't need the cabin either. So my middle sister, whose name is Tiny Skagen, she's the one that got the cabin. So what we did is we had the cabin appraised, and we took that appraisal and we divided it by 3, and Phyllis got her third of whatever that appraisal was from Tiny. And I said, I'm not ready to buy another cabin, and I want to use this cabin, this old family cabin. I want to use it until we find a cabin of our own or a lot to build on. So I'm going to have it reappraised when I'm ready to sell my third of this family cabin. And so about 2 years later, my husband, Chuck Walborg, and I found what we thought would be a good starter cabin for us. And so I went back to Tiny, and I said, okay, Tiny, I am ready to have the cabin appraised as of today. This is 2 years later, and we'll have it appraised, and I will sell my part of the cabin to you, and then you already have 2/3 of the cabin. But I want you to know that there are a few things that I want. And that is, I want the table that my dad had made for that cabin. Yeah. And so I wanted the table, and I had rules of the cabin that my dad wrote and hung on a door in the kitchen. And I want the rules of the cabin. He signed that, I think it's back in 1945. A long time ago, and those were the things that we were to follow when we used the cabin. And what year was that written, Monica?
Let's see. So that says, would it be on the back?
No, on the front.
Okay.
It's up at the top.
1947, rules
That's
of the
right.
cabin. This applies to everyone.
Read it.
Empty cans, bottles, etc. go in the garbage can just off of the back porch. Burn all milk cartons, paper, or other trash that will burn in the fireplace. 3. Food scraps, potato peels, oranges, or banana peels, or other such garbage is to be burned up back of the cabin. Shovel under the front porch. 4. Turn off all lights and the water heater when you leave. 5. Lock all doors and hang the key in the place where it is kept. 6. Please do not allow candy wrappers, empty cigarette boxes, or other such trash to be thrown around the grounds. If everyone will abide by the rules, we can all enjoy a clean and neat cabin. Thanks, Jim Welch. That is so neat. And who did the bark around the edge of it?
I took those. It was just a piece of paper, and I took that piece of paper and I made a bark frame. And I bought a frame and I put the bark around because it was very special to me.
Wow.
Because I had a wonderful father.
Oh.
And I wanted it to last.
That is beautiful.
First cabin. So the Tiny agreed, and I said, if you don't want to abide by, and I wanted the little rowboat.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted the rowboat and the motor.
Is that the one that we still have?
Yes, that's the one we still have.
I'll peek out and we'll show out on the dock there.
Now it needs to be painted.
Okay.
And Grandpa's going to paint it.
So we still have that. That's the original one. Wow.
And I told Tiny that if she did not want to abide by my desires for these particular things that were in the cabin, that would be all right too, because I'll take the cabin and she can have these things, and I'll pay her a third of the appraisal fee.
Sure.
And she decided she'd rather have the cabin. So that worked out just fine. She would like to have had all the things that I have as well, but she had to agree that she probably got the best end of the deal because she got the family cabin and 90 feet of waterfront along with it.
Yeah.
So Grandpa Chuck Walborg and Grandma Tootie Walborg proceeded to look for another cabin. And we finally, after looking at many, many places and lots and many possibilities, we found a 50-foot lot in the Narrows between about, let's see, I'd say that was about 12 miles from Chelan. And there were a lot of cabins along the lake there. And so we looked at the lot and we found out that my Aunt Ruthella Lund, her sister and family owned this little cabin. So my aunt called them and they said they were wanting to sell it. And she told us that the price of that cabin that they wanted was how much, Grandpa? Chuck? Would we pay for that little cabin? Chuck? I think Grandpa's asleep. Chuck?
Grandpa, what was the price of the cabin? The original cabin down the way?
What was the price of the Lund cabin when we bought it? $3,700?
$37,000.
That's more. Okay, I was going to say.
And it was an old cabin on a 50-foot lot. And my father came up to look at what we bought. And I said, well, what do you think, Daddy? And he said, my suggestion is you set a torch to it. And we didn't do that. Instead, we hired a carpenter that fall, and he said that he had to tie it to a tree to keep it standing.
Oh.
And he remodeled it. I guess did we remodel it that fall, honey? Chuck?
What?
Did we remodel it that fall?
I think so.
Yeah. And so we drew up the plans, and we had it remodeled, and we added 12 feet by 24 feet to one side of the cabin. So that gave us a new bathroom. It gave us a little bunk room for my dad could lay down and rest when he was tired and he was old. And we had stairs that went upstairs, and upstairs we had 2 bedrooms, one with twin beds in it and another one with king beds in it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of the cabin was converted to a living room and a really nice little fireplace in that cabin.
Mm-hmm.
And we bought a comfortable chair, a small, which we still have. And that became our new cabin. We were right on the water, and it was not a big, it was only about 50 feet wide,
Mm-hmm.
but it was great for our first new little cabin.
And what year was that? Do you remember when that was bought?
What year was that, Grandpa? 19.
The year for what?
What did we buy that?
Oh, 1977.
1977.
Okay.
And it was
Okay.
perfect because Grandpa bought a 70-acre apple orchard from my father, Jim Welsh, who was retiring from the apple business. And so Chuck Walborg bought his apple orchard,
Mm-hmm.
and he could commute by boat. So he'd take the boat across the lake, and he had a pickup on the other side of the lake, and he'd get in the pickup and go to the orchard, his new orchard. And so he had 70 feet of apples, and he stayed for harvest, and he began to learn how to produce apples.
Mm-hmm.
And he loved the business.
Was that within the same year? Or
No,
that
he had that orchard for 15 years.
Mm-hmm. And he acquired it at the same time that you got the cabin.
Just
then.
about the same time. That was the
Okay.
first year, yes.
Oh.
So we kept that cabin until we felt that we had enough money to really buy what we wanted,
Ah.
not what we could afford so much.
Mm-hmm.
So we started looking pretty soon, right after we built our little first cabin. We started looking for something that was bigger, better location, and with more depth, with more possibilities. And we found one. And we found exactly what we wanted. We found it one year, and they wanted way more money for it than we felt it was worth. So we did not buy it.
Oh.
So we waited another year, and it was still for sale.
Mm.
And we made again a second time. We made an offer. This time, they decided to sell because it had been sitting on the market for a long time and hadn't sold.
Mm-hmm.
And so Grandpa looked at it very, very carefully because it was kind of a narrow lot, and other people thought they couldn't build on it because it was so little between the road, little space between the road and the water.
Mm.
And we was worried that there might not be enough space there to build a cabin.
Mm-hmm.
But Grandpa, being an engineer, figured it all out that there was enough room. And so we proceeded to draw plans, and it took about a year for us to get the plans all drawn, and we stayed in the cabin that was on this property.
It was the
It was an
original one
old
over
cabin. Yeah, and it was right next door.
there. Mm-hmm.
And so we stayed in that for about a year
Mm-hmm.
until our new cabin was built. And we had thought we might sell the new cabin, or we might rent it. We didn't know. We really didn't know what we were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the cabin got bigger and the cabin got better, and our mantle came from the orchard that Grandpa had purchased,
This one here?
And it was from an old shed that they tore down.
Wow.
And Grandpa said, keep that beam. I want that beam.
Ooh.
And so we decided to make our mantle from the beam from the orchard that Grandpa used to own. And so the carpenters put a W in the front of it. And so, because it came from the orchard that Grandpa sold.
Wow.
And Grandpa sold everything about the orchard except for one tree. And so every year, as long as Grandma and Grandpa are alive, either one of us or both of us, we have a tree on that orchard that we can pick. And every year that we've been able to pick it, we've tried to get apples to all of our kids and grandkids as much as we could.
Mm-hmm.
And we've done that. And we're still doing that, except that this year the hail got the apples. Yeah. But maybe we'll be able to still be around next year. As long as either one of us is alive, that tree, not that any one tree in particular, but one of the golden delicious trees we could put a pink tape on it early in the season, and then they were not to pick the apples on that tree, but we pick the apples on that tree. We pack them and we give them to our kids and our grandkids, and that's what we've done, and that's what we're going to continue to do as long as we're alive.
And do you choose the tree during cherry blossom?
No, we choose it. We go look at it when the apples are on the tree.
Oh,
and we pick a tree that has apples. That apples are easy to pick, so it's not too big a tree. That has lots of apples on it. That'll be enough apples so each family will get a box or share a box of apples. Yeah. And that's what we've done.
I am so grateful to hear you tell this story, Grandma, and to hear of all the thought and care that you put into everything that you do.
Yeah. Well, we do, but Grandpa and I have worked hard for all the wonderful things that we've had in our life.
Yeah.
And we appreciate how fortunate we are. And we are. My mom was still alive when we moved into our new cabin. My dad died after we built our first cabin, or we remodeled our first cabin. Mm-hmm. He died shortly after that. Then my mom lived for a number of years, and she came over all the time. We'd bring her up to the cabin, and in fact, when she moved out of her apartment into a retirement home, she had extra things that she didn't know what to do with, so the things that didn't fit in the retirement home, we kind of distributed, and we set up the retirement home, and she moved in, and then all the extra furniture and things that she couldn't use in the retirement home were given to myself and my two sisters, mm-hmm. Phyllis and Tiny. Mm-hmm. And so we set up card tables, and we drew straws and picked a card table full of stuff, and that's how we divided all the stuff that Mother didn't need or want in her retirement home. Hmm. And so I have quite a number of things that belong to my mother, and some of them I've given away, some of them I still have, but enough so that I know I'm sitting right now at the table that my mother and father had. It was a game table, but they used it for a dining room table in their condominium. And when they had this table, a real nice table, and they had little low chairs, and we each got a chair. So I happened to have lucked into some chairs that when we bought our second lot, and it had a house on it where we stayed for 1 year, they had chairs that were just the right height.
Perfect.
So now we use those chairs, and right now we've got a puzzle, and we've made lots of puzzles on this table.
Yeah, puzzles.
And my mother liked to do puzzles, and my mother was was in good physical shape, for a long time after we had this cabin. So she was here a lot. We brought her up with us because she liked to stay here. And the little house next door, we call the bunkhouse, my mother would stay in. We converted that little bunkhouse into a house with 3 beds in it, twin beds in it, a bathroom in it, a kitchen in it, a little walk-in area. It was ideal for Mother, just where she would stay when she came to visit us. And so when she got tired, she could go over to her little cabin and go to bed or whatever she wanted to do. We even eventually put a television in there for her. And she loved to be up here and play. She liked to play cards, and she'd play cards with the kids and the grandkids, and they liked to play with her. And so all the grandkids got to know Mother. Her name was Stella Welch. In fact, one of Tiny's grandchildren is named Stella.
That's right.
Yeah. And then what we did is that we divided the property. The property that came with the lot. We bought a house, a little bunkhouse, and a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And the house is still standing. And we divided the property. Grandpa changed the lot lines, and we sold the house at the end of the property to a family that we felt were nice people, and they bought the house. And then we built we had some space in between, and there was where there was a bunkhouse, and that is what we converted and used for Grandma. And then next to the bunkhouse, we had just the right amount of space to build a hot tub. So we put the hot tub in, and everybody loved the hot tub because the water gets cold here.
Mm-hmm.
And they get in and warm up, and then they go back in the cold water, and then they come and warm up again. And that's been used a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've got a picture someplace of 9 kids in the hot tub all at the same time. Anyway, so the kids loved it up here, and they proceeded to come all the time. And each one would come at different times, and when they were young, and they just had a great time.
Mm-hmm.
Is we decided that we really needed a garage because the pitch from the pine trees and the dirt from the road was coming down, and was not good for our cars and boat.
Mm-hmm.
So Grandpa decided that we would build a garage. And so we have a garage that is 720 square feet in size, and it's big enough so that we could put our car in there. We had a Jeep, and we put that in there, and that would be there for the whole winter. That's how we stored the Jeep. On the other side of the garage, we had a sailboat that Grandpa had brought up from California when we moved up. And we had a sailboat here, 19-foot road sailor. And so that was in the other side of the garage so that it was protected in the wintertime. And the garage was locked up and stayed with all through the winter, and it was a sturdy garage. Well, Tootie felt that as long as we were putting up a garage, we should put up an apartment on the top of the garage so that we'd have more places for our grandkids to come and stay. So we had 720 square feet. That's the exact size of the garage. So we put an apartment over the garage. And we put a staircase that went up there, real sturdy staircase. And that had that loft, we called that the loft. And that loft had 2 bedrooms. One had a king-size bed in it. The other one had twin beds in it. In fact, the twin beds were extra long because they belonged to my mom and dad, and they put them together and it made a king size bed.
Ah.
And so what we had were twin beds, and then we had a king size bed, and then in the living room we had one across the front of it facing the water. We had a kitchen and a little counter with dishes in it that made an L. And we had a little kitchenette, refrigerators, microwave, stove, a little stool for kids, and then but next to that was a little dining room table that belonged to my mother and father when they were younger.
Mm.
And I still had that. We used that when we were first married.
Oh.
And so we used it here, and I bought new little chairs to go around it. And then when we purchased, let's see, how did I get we had a big sofa in there. I measured the room by the size of the sofa, so I know we had the sofa, and we had the sofa first in the new cabin, and I don't remember how we got that sofa. But anyway, we decided to make the sofa, and the kids could sleep on the sofa because it was 12 feet long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then there was this TV, and then there were two benches. We could actually sleep 4 kids in that sofa, or
Wow.
on the sofa.
Mm-hmm.
And that was can't remember what we called that, but anyway, it was ideal.
Mm-hmm.
Ideal. And so that was the loft. And so we had a bunkhouse, the loft, and the main cabin.
Nice.
Okay, I think so too.
So the cuckoo clock belonged to
The people that owned the first cabin that we bought.
oh, the one over here.
No.
Oh, the one.
Was it the Thomas cabin?
Honey, I really don't remember.
Now the people that owned the original cabin over there, that was
Paul
was it
Thomas.
Paul Thomas. Was
Right.
that a? It had. I mean, even now it's got all that Scandinavian decoration
Yeah,
on it.
yeah,
Is that?
yeah.
Is it Swedish? Danish? Do you know?
I don't know. They traveled a lot.
Oh.
They were well-to-do people,
Uh huh.
and they could have just about any lot they wanted. And they traveled all over, but they were kind of party people. They had
Uh-huh.
lots of friends in Wenatchee, and he was in the apple business,
Oh.
and he sold apples all over the world.
Oh wow.
And a very friendly guy, and his name was Paul Thomas. And Paul Thomas owned the cabin, built the cabin,
Mm-hmm.
and they've left it exactly like he made it.
Yeah.
The only thing they've done is they've added a little cabin down near the water in front of the other cabin
Okay.
so that they could put their water life jackets and stuff like we have lockers
Yeah.
down below.
Yeah.
So they could put things in that little, so they'd have place for that.
Mm.
And they built a new dock. We built a new dock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When we bought this, there was an old dock, and it was made out of logs, excuse me,
Wow.
and rocks, and
Yeah.
we just tore it all down and started from scratch. And so all the docks along here are new docks. And,
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, everyone did it. Well, and then you resurfaced it a few
Yeah,
years
then
ago, right?
we've done more. Yeah, we've had, first we had I think our carpeting that we had was a surveyor. Was it a surveyor belt, honey? It was a belt of some kind, wasn't it?
I haven't been listening.
Yeah.
The carpeting for the dock, did it come from a conveyor belt? A
It
surveyor?
came from Vancouver, Washington factory.
Oh, okay.
Was that the first one?
Yeah.
What about the railroad ties? What was the story with those? That's pretty neat.
Well, The Thomas cabin had a dock that was built on a railroad ties, and there were millions of them.
Oh.
And we didn't want the dock where they had built it, so we took the thing apart and put all the railroad ties up on the turn in the road.
I didn't even know those were from the original dock. Wow. I'll put a picture in there of the railroad ties. Wow.
So we tried to conserve, and we didn't want a beautiful home on the lake. We wanted a cabin on the lake where our kids, if they came in with wet feet from the lake, it wouldn't ruin the carpet. We didn't want to be picayune about anything, and we wanted them to feel not to worry. You know, this is a cabin to have fun in.
Yeah.
And so that's what Grandpa's talking about.
What are some of your memories from your childhood in your family cabin that you wanted to carry over into this cabin?
Well, first of all, my parents bought their first cabin, was a little tiny cabin. That's when the table was made for that first cabin. And it was a little tiny cabin, and it was up lake. It was in what we call the Narrows. It's only about a half a mile across the lake, up lake.
Okay.
And the location wasn't nearly as good as where we are now. The view wasn't as good as where we are now. But that's all they could afford.
Mm-hmm.
And so they built, didn't Daddy build a dock there, honey? Did Daddy build a dock?
Yeah.
I think so. Anyway, it was a little tiny cabin, real little, like 2 bedrooms, and not enough room for a dining room table. That's why that was made to fold in, so it would be only 2 feet wide.
Wow.
And go under the windows, so then we could open up one side, or if need be, we could pull it out. But everything would be sitting right in the middle of a cabin.
Wow.
But it was a cabin.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know when that was because I was pregnant with Jenny.
Ah.
And Jenny, I was 3 weeks past due with Jenny when I was up at the cabin.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
3 weeks past due.
Yeah, 3 weeks past due. And I wasn't supposed to be that far away from the hospital, but I was.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I guess, and then I had a cesarean section.
Oh, really?
Because I was 3 weeks overdue.
And she was your first.
Yeah.
So you probably had to have the rest that way, right?
Uh-huh.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so what we had, there was practically nothing in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I can't even remember if there's anything except for that table. That's why I wanted that table.
Sure.
My dad had an orchard, and he had a carpenter that worked on the orchard, and he had the carpenter make that table.
Wow.
For that cabin.
Well, and especially as a symbol of your dad, when you were saying the other night that he valued the people that worked for him.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And they valued working for him also.
Yeah.
So I had a wonderful dad and a wonderful mother.
Yeah.
I was very, very lucky.
Yeah.
And they were happy that I married Chuck Wolborg.
Yeah. That's
Anyway, so
good choice.
yeah. So the next cabin that we bought was when Brad was a baby. Oh, what year would that be, honey?
What?
When Brad was born.
What?
When was Brad born?
1955.
So in 1955, Jenny was born in 1949. Brad was born in 1955, and my dad bought 1954 or 1955 for $10,000. He bought the old cabin. That's how much $10,000 would buy.
Wow.
That was the old cabin that Tiny has now that you've been down and looked at.
And she's built on that first one right in the front is the original structure, yes?
No,
or no? Okay.
No. They weren't even connected.
Okay.
That was not part of the first cabin.
Oh.
That belonged to somebody else.
Oh, okay.
It belonged to, when she bought it, it belonged to the Stories. And they put it on the market, and we're going to sell it. And Tiny called me and wanted to know what I thought, and I said, buy it.
Mm-hmm.
And she did.
Wow.
And so she bought that, and so that made her have 2 cabins.
Mm-hmm.
And like we are, she uses them all the
Yeah.
time for
Yeah.
kids and grandkids, and
Mm-hmm.
we both do very much alike in that regard,
Mm-hmm.
which is nice.
Yeah,
And anyway, so
it's very nice.
now where are we?
So that cabin that was separate, that they built, they bought that, but then where was the original cabin? Up behind there?
The one you saw.
Oh yeah, that's right. I did see it last
Yeah,
time when
you
Ron
went-
showed us around.
you
That's
went-
right.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
right. Up
that-
on the hill there.
That's the
That's
original
right.
cabin.
That's right. Yeah,
And she's not done much of anything to that.
that's neat. Now all the beams above here, the structure on the framing here, is this also from the orchard?
No.
The
The only
ones
thing
here?
from the orchard is that the one on the fireplace.
Okay.
Isn't that right, honey?
Is the wood here, is this all locally sourced then? It must be, yes?
Well, Grandpa looked all over to find the bricks that he found and the fireplace that he found
Oh.
because he wanted a fireplace. We have no furnace here.
Ah.
And so if we stay in the fall here,
Uh-huh.
we don't have a way to heat this except through space heaters and the fireplace.
Wow.
So he wanted a fireplace. What do you call that? A heatilator, honey? Chuck? Chuck?
What?
What do you call the fireplace?
What do you mean?
It heats the place, right?
A heatilator.
That's right. It was a heatilator. I had that right. And we stayed here. We've stayed here several years for through the fall.
Okay. When is the latest that you've left? You come here usually in,
Except in April.
okay, in April.
Yeah, April, May, June, July, August, September. And we usually leave the end of September.
Okay.
We spend, ideally we spend 6 months, but when my aunt lived in Chelan, she was in the hospital and she was dying, we stayed longer.
Yeah. Ruth?
Aunt Ruth.
Uh-huh.
And when your grandpa, my husband, Chuck Wahlberg, had cancer, and we had to stay because he had radiation, and he had to go down every day to Wenatchee for radiation, so we stayed longer.
Yeah.
When we moved from the original cabin, after when we built this cabin, before the railing was on, we had all of our stuff crammed in that cabin next door. Then we had this cabin that was just finished being built, and we had to move from that cabin to this cabin.
Oh my goodness.
And Jenny and Kate
Mm-hmm.
arrived unannounced. We did not know they were coming to help us
Oh.
move from that cabin to this cabin. This one had no railing on it. It did have the deck,
Oh.
but it didn't have any railing.
Oh wow.
And it had our picnic table. It's down there on the deck here.
Mm-hmm.
And they came back and forth, hauling stuff over here from over there.
Wow.
And between us, the four of us, we got all the stuff moved from there to here, to there to here, got it all put in,
No.
and we were dead
I
tired.
bet.
I mean, they knocked on the door. We didn't know they were coming.
I remember hearing the stories
Yeah.
of Kate going through all the books and deciding. Okay,
Yeah,
this
yeah,
gets
we
in
did through all this, and we got it all over, and we woke up the next morning. There was 14 inches of snow on the tabletop sitting
oh
on
my
this deck.
gosh.
We put a
Wow.
we put a yardstick in and measured it.
Wow.
14 inches of
Gee,
snow. So
overnight?
what if we hadn't moved that?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. That is miraculous.
Yes.
Wow.
And so that was wonderful. Kate was
Wow.
big enough at the time to be, able to haul things herself.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we got everything here. So what we had what I do when I move,
Mm-hmm.
my mother used to draw floor plans,
Oh.
and so I started drawing floor plans.
She used to draw floor plans just
Grandpa,
because?
Grandpa is an engineer, and he he knows a lot about drafts. He's a draftsman, and he's way more talented than I am. But I like drawing floor plans.
Nice.
So I learned from my husband, and I learned from my mother, and I learned from doing. I learned that at my office when I had to open an office in San Francisco for somebody else that I worked for.
Uh-huh.
And I drew the plans, and Grandpa helped me.
Wow.
And Grandpa, he helped me learn how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I had drawn, and then I learned how to I measured my furniture and where I'm going to put it, so that when they came over with the table goes here. That little cart goes here. That chair goes there. That chair, this chair go here.
Much more efficient than just dragging it around. And
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's
Wow.
if you move much, which I did.
Uh-huh.
I had, before Grandpa and I got married, I moved something like 20 times,
Wow.
all over, including to
Wow.
Chicago and back.
Oh, my gosh.
Anyway, so I learned how to do that, and that saved me a tremendous amount of time.
And strain.
And work, yeah.
Yeah.
And so between the four of us, we knew exactly, we got everything of any, weight, chairs, big chairs,
Yeah.
sofas, anything. In fact, that's where the sofa came from, that big one that I told you we put upstairs.
Oh, okay.
But we put it
Yeah.
in here first
Oh, okay.
because we didn't have a place for it. We didn't build that first. That was the last thing we built.
Yeah.
And then we moved again
Oh, my goodness.
to the. Oh, I saw a bug. Is that a bug?
Well, it's a long gone bug.
What?
It's a bug, but it's just a piece of it.
Okay. Anyhow, so that's how we got some of the furniture we got was in that house.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we sold the house, we sold it empty.
Mm-hmm.
And we took the furniture from there
Okay.
and
Sure.
put it in here,
Mm-hmm.
and in the bunkhouse. We made the bunkhouse
Mm-hmm.
into what you see right now.
Mm-hmm.
That the window that's in the bathroom
Mm-hmm.
is a door. It was a door.
Oh. Oh.
It was a
That's
door.
right. I kind of remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a door, and it went to the other house over there, the one that's over there. So
Oh.
there was a door there.
I vaguely remember that.
That used to
Yeah.
be the boys' house. They had 3 boys,
Oh.
and all they had, and there were 3 double beds.
Okay.
That's where you are now,
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
and a bathroom
Ah.
with a light that hung down on a light bulb.
Okay, so that's right. The bunkhouse was part of that other
Yeah,
structure. Okay, that's
Yeah.
right. That's right. Because I do remember that.
yeah, it was.
Oh gosh, isn't that funny?
Yeah.
I did go through on that.
So there was
side.
nothing in there that we could use except maybe we used one of the beds. I don't even remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the other stuff that we took, that bookcase that's upstairs,
Uh huh.
that was in that house.
Okay. Yeah.
We brought that
okay.
over.
Okay.
So we did use that.
Yeah.
We used everything that we could
Right.
in this cabin.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Well, and it's such a neat thing about the repurposing. Really, I mean, that's what my mom and I have talked about. You know
What?
the ways that people repurposed more now, more than less now, and really, it keeps the story about it as well, and that's really an important part of it too.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just the repurposing, but it's the story that you get to carry with it as well. And then, of course, it saves money and,
Yeah.
and it saves
Yeah.
time.
It does.
And, yeah.
We are not spendthrifts.
Mhm.
We don't presume that we have lots of money
Sure.
to spend, because we grew up without lots of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I was growing up, we had an outhouse
Yeah.
when I was
Yeah.
little.
Wow.
But I had lots of love.
Yeah.
And I had wonderful parents.
Mhm.
We didn't even have a bathroom in the house. They didn't, all they had was enough money to buy a lot.
Yeah.
And they built a one room
For the house.
for the house.
Wow. And your dad was a mailman for a while, right? On horseback?
Mm-hmm.
Love that.
Yep. That's
Yeah.
another, now we're getting into someone else's life if you want to go back that far.
Well, it's cool.
And it's a
Because
long
it's
story.
part of your. He's such a part of.
That's
who
right,
you-
honey. But remember, I'm 88
Mhm.
and Grandpa's 90.
Mhm.
And so when you get to be this age, we can go back
We
to
got a lot of stories.
yeah.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
could go on and on and on.
Sure.
I even have papers on that. I have a whole file cabinet of family history
Mm.
that a lot of people, what happens is that to actually utilize that, you have to be totally devoted to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chuck's sister, Doris, did a family history,
Mhm.
and she did a bound book on his family, and coming from Norway, and
Mhm.
so she Dorth was at Dorth Riblet, and she did this and gave us a bound book that I should be looking
Oh,
for.
do we have it
Yes.
here? Oh.
I don't know that it's here now, but it's down. I think down there someplace.
But yeah, we talked about how that
Yeah.
what facet we're going to go into because we can go down so many
Oh,
different
yeah, you
areas. so,
can.
yeah.
In fact, if you ever want some time, there's books there that include my family in Wenatchee, and there's a picture of my grandfather with 4 carriages. He had a horse and buggy, and so he delivered people's luggage, and he delivered wood, and he delivered with his horses. So
See,
he'd
and
have-
that's interesting because it is our family, but it also still ties into the history of the cabin and this area as well because
Oh,
the family
absolutely.
was really,
The
in this
reason that we
area.
even know anything about Lake Chelan is that when I was 10 years old, I'd go stay with my grandma.
Mm-hmm.
You know where Pat and Mike's is?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That, right down there, a half a mile up lake from Pat and Mike's,
Mm-hmm.
is where my grandma stayed in a cabin,
Okay.
1-bedroom cabin, and she would have 2 of her grandkids up there at a time. And in the living room in the corner, like this, they had it kind of blocked off.
Mm-hmm.
My grandpa made bunk beds,
Oh.
and he
wow.
wasn't a carpenter.
What was his name again?
Bert Adams.
Bert Adams.
Herbert.
Herbert Adams.
Herbert
Okay.
Eugene Adams.
So this is grandma.
This is his daughter's table. He
Yeah.
was my mother's father,
Yeah.
and he couldn't hear a word. He was deaf. He would read your lips, and he'd go
Wow.
like this, and that meant money. Yeah.
Oh, did you never know him, Mom?
Grandpa
No.
Adams?
Yeah. No.
No.
Just a little bit.
When you were a little girl.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I don't think she did, but
So so now when you say they had a cabin there,
it wasn't theirs.
that's right because you didn't say
No.
their cabin, you said
No.
a cabin, right?
My uncle, Charlie Lund, in fact, the first cabin we bought, his brother's wife,
Mhm.
he had died, and his brother's wife owned the little cabin, the first cabin we bought.
Oh,
And that's how we heard
right.
about it.
Okay.
That's how
Now
we heard.
Charlie Lund, is that Chuck Lund's dad?
Mhm.
Okay, that's your
Chuck
cousin, Chuck
Lund,
Lund.
yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And he was sort of like his dad. He played piano like his. You remember how he played
Ah.
all over the? Well, my uncle, Charlie,
Uh huh.
Chuck's father,
Uh huh.
lived in
was
Chicago, and he
Charlie too,
played
yeah.
ragtime music.
Wow.
He didn't read music, and he could play. I'd say, Uncle Charlie, do you know how to play? So he said, hum it. I'd hum it, and he'd start playing, and pretty soon he had played the whole. He played chords.
Wow.
Yeah, he was
So there's a lot of musical ability in our
that
family.
That part of the family, yes.
In all throughout, it sounds
Yeah,
like.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
No, I loved my family. My mother was quite musical. She knew all kinds of songs. My dad
Really?
couldn't carry a tune.
Okay. Okay.
Phyllis couldn't carry a tune.
Okay.
Tiny was okay. She
Uh-huh.
could carry a tune.
Uh-huh.
I loved music.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm the one that got into choirs and I got into musicals and did it.
Nice.
But I didn't have real talent
Mm-hmm.
like you guys
Mm-hmm.
and John and my former husband
Mm-hmm.
and his sister. I mean, they had
Mhm.
beautiful voices.
Yeah.
Laurel
Yeah.
was the kind, they were Lutheran people, and when they go to church, the church could be packed, and Laurel you could hear above everybody. Not
Wow.
because she was
Yeah.
trying to, she just had this gorgeous voice.
Wow.
The director of a university choir, and I can't remember exactly what his title was, in Seattle heard her
Uh-huh.
in that kind of a situation and approached her, and she was just a teenager,
Mm-hmm.
and he wanted her to move to Seattle, and he was the director of a opera thing,
Mm-hmm.
and he would teach her
Mm-hmm.
if she would move there for free
Wow.
because she had such a beautiful voice.
Wow. That
And she
is
did.
so
You
neat.
knew, if you were in a church, you knew who was singing.
Wow.
And so there's a huge difference. I mean, lots of people can sing. Lots of people can sing harmony. I could.
Yeah. Yeah.
But once you know people
Mm-hmm.
that are, it's not that it's not that they think they're better.
Mm-hmm.
It's that they truly have.
Yeah.
It's like, what's Liberace? No, not Liberace. Who was the guy that, honey, the singer that's so famous, he died. The big guy with the big handkerchief.
Pavarotti.
Pavarotti.
Yes.
Okay. Who can deny?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Who can deny? Okay. So, in your lifetime, and I
Mhm.
mean a lifetime,
Mhm.
when I went to college,
Mm-hmm.
there was one girl
Mm-hmm.
that had that kind of voice.
Yeah.
Only one.
Yeah.
I could sing. I took lessons, voice lessons
sure.
at college.
Oh, sure.
But when you have experienced
Mm-hmm.
that kind of person
Mm-hmm.
in your life, that's why you never saw me singing.
Mm-hmm.
Because, not because I didn't enjoy music or didn't like it,
Mhm.
and I could harmonize with anyone,
Mm-hmm.
but I appreciated
Mhm.
people who could really
Yeah.
sing, and
Yeah.
I wanted my kids to have that same feeling
Yeah.
that I had.
Yeah.
And I got every bit of enjoyment, as much enjoyment out of seeing my kids. Remember we used to take you into Chelan, into San Francisco?
Absolutely.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
Because
Yes,
I
do.
recognized you had a very, very special talent.
Yeah.
And so,
You were always very nurturing with that. I think about that as an adult. I look back and think how
yeah.
really
and because
special
I
that
mean,
was.
that isn't something that, well, it does show up. John sang his first solo when he was 9.
Wow.
I had gone through a divorce. It was
Mhm.
right after 9 or 10 maybe, and it was in church,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't sit through the service.
Mm.
I had to get up and leave. I was just emotionally
Oh.
a basket case
Wow.
because as a little boy,
Yeah.
he had a voice
Oh.
that I knew,
Yeah.
and he has that kind of voice. There's no,
Yeah.
and obviously, I mean,
Yeah.
he's performed. I mean, You've never even seen his resume. But
Oh,
he became the lead.
yeah.
He performed at the White House.
Yeah.
He rode in the Air Force One, the plane.
Yeah, I hadn't
you
even known that. I just found that out. I didn't realize that.
That's just a fraction of what
Yeah.
he's done.
Yeah.
We've got him on tape. I don't know how many times. He's getting a standing ovation every day. I never saw him perform before the Miss America. He did the Miss America pageants.
Yeah.
We went back to see him twice.
I remember going to see the Miss America pageant in Washington State, or no, it was
No,
it was
Miss
no, I'm
Washington.
sorry, it was Miss Washington. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
that was just.
And so
I was so proud.
Well, it doesn't matter being proud. To me, it's a matter of recognizing
Mhm.
a talent.
Mhm.
But the other thing that if you stop to think about it, yes, it's one thing to be famous. I mean, I've got pictures of him with President Ford shaking his hand, Bob Hope shaking John's hand.
Mm.
Why? He was the lead of the New Christian Minstrels. He performed at the Chariot Festival in Washington, D.C. He performed at the White House. He rode an Air Force One. And that's in the museum now. John can walk up and said, I'm sitting there, I called my mother.
Yeah.
And those are the things that you're not just kidding yourself.
Sure.
You
Oh,
know
sure.
who has that ability.
Well, and you recognize
You
that.
recognize that, but then you've got to decide, how is that going to fit? How's that going to be for his life?
Yeah. And I think that's something that people with that kind of talent, they have to reconcile.
Yeah.
And it's something that's not easy. And I've had people say, you're so talented. You can do so many things. You can sing and you can paint. And say, I am grateful. I certainly don't want to seem ungrateful.
Yeah.
But I also know that I also have to be realistic about how that fits in. And I
Exactly.
hear when you say, what does that mean? Because Matt will even say, I'm going to be famous someday. You know, famous. I'm realistic about how much talent there is in this pool of the world. And it's not to say that I don't see it as possible for myself.
Yeah.
But I also put it in the context of where I am in my life. Because if I didn't, it could be crazy making. I have this talent. No, I appreciate it. And whatever heights it comes to, that's great. And with Uncle John, you realize, yes, this is wonderful. But he also has...
I thought I saw the offspring. The decision that I made a decision that caused John to leave that industry.
Yeah.
Because I offered him an opportunity to come to work at Walmart Michelson. And I knew what I was doing. I was cutting off the entertainment field. And the reason I was doing that is that I could see how that could lead him down a path that I wouldn't. I mean, he wasn't. He didn't. Made an album with his face on the front of it and the whole thing. Jenny was there. The women just screamed and hollered. He sold it out. The whole. I don't forget how many albums he sold. It was gone. And the women were trying, the girls were, they were just taken with him. And all he wanted to do was get out of there and get back to the hotel room.
Yeah.
And I saw that happen over and over again.
Aunt Jenny and I have talked about that too, about when you have that kind of energy and charisma that you have to pull back because there are people that are, they're pulling on your energy. They want what you have. They want a piece of that, and so you have to pull back.
Well, he never did. I mean, he put out.
Yeah.
He put out, and he could walk down he would be saying, "This world is my." Yeah. I mean, he'd just throw it out.
Yeah.
And they're screaming and they're hollering and they're giving him a standing ovation. And I'm talking about a gymnasium full of people. I'm not talking about a group of people. I'm talking about, and I kept seeing that, and I thought, it doesn't fit. I mean, he's not going to be happy. And like John said last year or the year before, there's a cabin over there, and what is the name of the guy? He's famous. He's a
Tom Cruise.
Crop Cruise.
Mm-hmm.
Rented it.
Mm-hmm.
It's for celebrities. It's blocked off so people can't get in.
Mm.
And if John said, can you imagine if everybody knew that there was a celebrity living here?
Yeah.
What our lakefront would be like?
Sure.
And who needs that? Do you
Yeah.
really want that?
Yeah.
Your privacy's gone. And these are the things that I saw happen repeatedly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I came to John and I said, John, would you be interested in coming into Walbrook Michelson?
Mm-hmm.
That's why.
Yeah.
That's how he got out of the business. And he said, I'll think about it overnight. He came back and he said, Mom, I'd be a fool not to. I said, you're right.
Mm.
And so that's what we did. Even in a way, there's nobody that loves to hear him sing any more than I do. I love to hear you sing. I mean, it's your kids or your grandkids, it makes you feel good.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I think we did the right thing.
Yeah.
I'm not sorry.
Absolutely.
Once in a while, I just wish I could hear him sing periodically, but I
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
But he can still sing. Happy birthday.
Mm.
And I've got him singing the Lord's Prayer
Oh.
on tape
Oh.
with your mom. She didn't sing the Lord's Prayer, he did, but they sang together.
Mm.
And the song that they sang, I mean, they were together, just the two of them in the church for Carmen's wedding.
Oh.
Did you ever hear that? You did.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're gotten off the beaten
Well, and
track.
that's I think the stories. That's the gift of singing. So we went to, Matt and I go to karaoke, and it's, there was a while back where it was kind of like, oh, karaoke, it's karaoke, and judgment about karaoke, and then we started going to karaoke again a while back, and it was good for us. It was good for Matt. It was good for all of us. And then I realized that it wasn't just about us. That you don't just have the gift to sing for yourself or to make a career or to make money. It's a gift, and a gift that you receive from a life gift from Spirit is meant to be shared. It's meant to be experienced by other people too. And that's why even with this video, I didn't want to just make this for me. I could just listen to the story myself. But I think this is too valuable for me to just keep to you and I.
Mm-hmm.
This is a story about families, not just our family. This is a story about a family that has gone through challenges, and
Did I
they
tell
pieced
you
together.
that Ryan Feeney did this
Yeah.
with me? Did I?
And I'm gonna connect with Ryan, and maybe we can
Well, you better
use
do it
both
because
of
he's
our.
got it.
Yeah, yeah.
He
we're
said- he
we're
told me
connected
last
on
time.
Facebook too.
He said I found the tape.
I love that he did, and that's a
But and he
perfect
shouldn't
example.
have it. I mean, he did it.
Well, and this is what I say. This isn't just about our family.
No.
This is about all the families that our family has come into
Right.
contact with. This is about touching other people, because as you live your lessons, you live your life, you work through it, other people see.
Right.
And that's what singing. And I had a man come up to me after I did one of my songs. His wife had passed away just within the month. And I felt the power of why I was doing what I was doing. As small of a scale. Here we are in this little karaoke place. I don't even know how many people were in the room at that moment. But he was in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in the room. And I still sang from the deepest part of myself because I didn't want to hold back. Why should I?
Yeah.
And he received that, and I received that. And then that moment that we shared that connection, that was everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's life affirming stuff.
Yeah. Sure.
And it doesn't have to have any kind of contract or dollar sign. And
no.
it doesn't mean that that isn't just as powerful, because that shows how far-reaching it can be. That with that behind it, it can go really far, but it's still just as powerful. That one connection.
That's true.
And that's been helpful for me, because it's also about shining your light. And I told Mom I'm so proud of her for with her Buddhism. She's found what works for her and gives her confidence. I used to criticize her, like I said, and she used to, it hurt her, and I felt like, oh, I needed her to hear this and this. And I couldn't say anything now that she holds on to, because she's found a place where she can let it go.
Right.
That's bigger than her self. And so now I told her, Mom, you ring that bell. You bong, you chant, you do that with your confidence, because that's what's brought you joy. And whatever each of us, whatever we do, you know, we do it with our heart and our confidence.
Right.
Because why should we not? That's why I love to. I think that's something that we've overcome, both my mom and I. That we, you know, that's what's come out in my voice. I remember coming up in front of a group, my mom pulling me into the group, and I was just like, oh, I just remember having a moment. I was so shy, and I was so nervous. And oh, so many things that I did because I chose fear.
That what?
I chose fear. I stayed small. Or I put it in someone else's hands.
Yeah.
And I've had moments where I've thought of what I could have done if I hadn't chosen the relationship that I had. But I also had to come about it in my own time.
Yeah, that's obvious.
So I'm doing a lot of talking with our interview here. But this is about all of us.
Yeah.
And you started that. And you started that appreciation.
Yeah.
I love hearing again the stories that things that I didn't know. Because you do things behind the scene. That's what Matt does and his mom does. They do things behind the scene that I never would have maybe even known about. Which is, you know, loving things that just without expectation, like Grandpa does too.
Yeah.
He does all these things. He's supportive, and Jeff does that too.
Who?
Jeff.
Oh, yeah.
Lisa does that, and Jeff does that for Lisa. And like
Those
an
are-
antique
those are
store or
super-
something.
That's how they used to make cigars.
That's so neat.
Cigar, you rolled them and put them in there, and they molded and dried, I guess. I don't know.
Well, you guys have a lot of, I love your, all the wood that you have. You really appreciate the different kinds of woods, don't you? The, where did that chest come from, that stand that's next to the couch
What?
there? Where did that stand next to the couch come from?
You know what that is?
Oh, a cradle?
No.
What is it?
It's a dough box.
A dough box?
D-O-U-G-H.
Really? How did you come with
Well, in the olden days, is people had to make their own bread. And they had dough boxes. And that was a dough box.
for the bread to rise in? So that's a pretty big loaf.
Well, that's...
But I guess you'd have to have that big if
It would
that was all your
depend
bread.
on your family. You could put more than one loaf in there. I mean, you could have
right.
you could put 4, maybe 5. I mean, all you have to do is roll it separately. Put one in.
Sure.
You put maybe I don't even know how they did it. I used to make bread. I had a yeast.
Really?
I did it for a year. I made all of our bread, and I didn't have a dough box then. You could do it in a big kettle or big pan. You can buy machines that make your own
Oh
bread.
yeah, the bread machines. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's the same principle, only it's a dough box. I've got one at home too.
Is this one that you used, or did you get that somewhere
No.
else?
We went back to the East Coast where my cousin lived. That little bear over there on the counter.
Yeah.
She worked in a gift shop back in Georgia. She sent that to me. She died here several years ago, breast cancer.
Wait a minute. Where is the bear? The bear with the red, white, with the red hat?
No,
Which bear?
that's a chicken. can't tell the
In the
difference.
corner, no, in the corner with the red hat and the flag. That's not a chicken.
Where?
Over by the fireplace. But you said it was on the counter, so where is this bear? Oh, it's up top up there.
No. The bear is sitting in front of the television set.
Oh, okay, gotcha. There's another bear with a red hat in the corner over there.
Is that a bear?
Yes, it is not a
Oh,
chicken.
That's the 4th of July.
Oh, okay.
No,
Okay,
the
so
one-
that
the
was
one
from
that's down there in
East
the corner.
Uh.
My cousin sent that to me. She worked in this gift store.
Oh,
And she just sent that to me one time. They stayed here.
which cousin was that?
My aunt says my dad's sister's daughter.
Okay, so there was, I remember
Sis and Lil.
Aunt Ruth,
Aunt Ruth was Charlie, was Lund's. Chuck
Okay.
Lund's
okay,
mother.
she was hilarious.
Yeah.
There's a lot of strong sense of humor in our family. Where do you think that mostly comes from? Kind of that dry wit. Like Tiny has that. You have that.
I don't know.
Was Grandpa was like that, right? Great Grandpa, your
No,
dad.
I think actually my mother had more.
Oh yeah, she did. Huh?
Yeah.
That's true. Cause Aunt Ruth was like that.
Mother liked to put puzzles together. She liked to play cards. She liked to sing. She liked to dance. She was more outgoing than my dad.
But they both
And she was a
encouraged you.
golfer. She had a hole-in-one.
Wow.
Yeah, she was a good golfer.
Wow.
Yeah, and she knew every song that she ever learned, I think.
Wow.
So she was a singer. I wouldn't say she had a beautiful voice, but she certainly carried a tune.
Wow.
And she used to square dance. She and my dad did. My dad, if he didn't start out in the right, he was off the whole time because he didn't have any rhythm.
Was she adventurous like you were? Did she like to travel and was she?
They went south and golfed with their friends.
Oh, okay.
I think they went to Hawaii once or twice.
Oh, okay. So not a lot of traveling.
They travel south every year.
Oh, well, okay.
Every year they'd go down and they'd rent a motel, or they'd stay in the same place that they stayed the year before if they liked it, and they'd rent it for a month or 2 months.
Uh-huh.
They'd be on a golf course or close to a golf course, and then they'd meet friends there that were from Wenatchee
Oh,
who also liked to golf.
where was that? When you say down south, where was
Hello.
down south?
So, hello,
Where are you?
sitting in the corner.
Oh,
Where have you been?
Hi.
going shopping
Oh my gosh!
for the pot roast.
Did you take?
Oh my God!
You got my check?
How many pounds did you buy?
8 pounds.